Springtrap. As I said in the previous one, I think this is actually the Shadow Bonnie we'd seen in 2. Now, what do we know about Springtrap? Well, he's clearly meant to be a Bonnie-like suit. He's a rabbit. He has a bow tie, I think. Clearly he was probably like a golden version of Bonnie, because people have actually like decolored him. And when his eyes are half closed, he looks more stoned than scary. Here he actually looks psychotic, so maybe they should have just kept the eyes really wide open. But when he's got his eyes half closed, he just looks like a fucking stoner. He uses one of those faces that it's either stoner or crazy. One of those two. I think I've known a few people like that, and usually they tend to stay in the stoner look. Jokes aside, we know that there is a human body possibly in Springtrap. He was one of the mechanical suits that you could turn into a human-friendly suit with a special lock, but the locks apparently were faulty or something on some of the suits. There were multiple, at least 2, probably more, we don't know. And if they sprung when you were in the suit, it was basically the equivalent of the animatronic shoving you in the suit, only you were already inside. So it was pretty much an instantaneous and maybe your eyes and teeth still survived. I don't know. It was pretty much just the equivalent of saving the animatronics the trouble. Okay, and we also know that this particular suit is the one that killed one of, if not the murderer of the children. There is a theory floating around there may have been more than one murder. I'll get into that in a little bit. So, okay. We also know that Springtrap was dug up recently, so to speak, in the timeline. And, he may have been Shadow Bonnie, as I've said, because the teeth kind of match up. The eyes definitely match up, the big, wide, psychotic look. And the fact that it is basically a rabbit. Okay, now here's a question. Technically, Springtrap has been around since 1, which is the second most recent in the timeline, and the end of 2, which is the prequel. Why hasn't he popped up before? Well, if you go by the creative standpoint, maybe Scott didn't think of him until recently as the possible final antagonist, because supposedly Five Nights is done for, well, at least for now. But storyline-wise, well, the phone calls say that there's a safe room where you keep these suits, and you can't really keep anything else in there, you really shouldn't. And you can go in and out of the suits, even the animatronics don't go in there. Alright? This is theorized where the murders probably took place, which, yeah, a smart murderer would take advantage of that. That being said, this wannabe Max from Sam and Max was probably at one point one of the suits hanging out in there, i.e., somebody would put them on, so the murderer might have used this or the Golden Freddy suit, or if there were a pair of them, both suits were being used to lure the kids. Now, okay, we've got our scenario. Obviously, eventually what happens is something happens, one of the killers, or the killer, ends up in the suit, spring, and he's trapped. He's dead. So, and there were other incidents like this. Apparently this happened multiple times. People went into the suit, spring, they probably couldn't even pull them out, because, ugh, that would be kind of a biohazard, and this is a restaurant. You can't really have blood, guts, and gore around the food. So, they decide, you know what, we're taking these suits and we're sealing them up. Freddy isn't really good, the Freddy Fazbear's management is not very good about being open about this shit. So, they swept it under the rug and sealed up the safe room with cement, meaning this thing was trapped in a cement-blocked room for probably 30 years at least. And going by a theory that each of these restaurants were built on top of each other, essentially, or built from modified buildings. That means he probably was in the building during the original Five Nights at Freddy's games, the second one in the timeline, first one in the series. But he couldn't do anything because he was trapped in concrete. Apparently there is a way to stop the animatronics. Seal them up. Okay. And probably because of his presence, the other animatronics who knew he murdered kids probably thought he was still in the building somewhere. He was possibly a security guard. I did give that theory. Did I? Yeah, no, I didn't yet. But he was probably a security guard. And you happen to be a security guard. These things put two and two together, but forget to carry the one. That being said, that's why he can't really harangue you in the first two games. He's sealed up. He's trapped. Well, in the second game, he didn't even exist until much later. But he's basically trapped. He can't do shit. They mentioned in the second night of the third game, they dig him up. Somebody, probably while building this thing, found him. And when he was found, they put him into the building and woke him up. Now, this is the spirit of a psychotic murderer. He's probably a little pissed. He probably decided, fuck killing kids, I'm killing whatever I see that's alive. You're the only thing that's alive in the building at the time. Guess who he's going after? And if that place had actually opened up, there probably would have been more victims. Yeah, this thing did not give two shits. Springtrap should have stayed trapped. Catch you later, guys.